within the day variability has a huge impact on safety, patient satisfaction, teamwork, and the ability for that surgical team to really execute well for that patient. And at the end of the day, after we did this analysis, I could put a dozen quotes up here. The IHO team, I think one of them said, it's one of the most chaotic operating rooms they've ever seen. So our ORs are a mess. Our prime time utilization was less than 70%. Yet we were paying 15 FTs in overtime every pay period. Our surgeons were unhappy because they weren't working with their teams. Our staff was unhappy because they would come to work and all of a sudden find themselves facing a completely different operation than the one they expected. We lost efficiencies. We didn't have people working within their teams. We had huge turnover in our operating rooms of our staff. And I'll show you some of those data. All right, so this is the roll-up of a lot of the data. Let me first focus you on the upper part. And you'll see numbers that have to do with throughput. Cases are up 4%. Minutes are up 5%. Overtime FTEs are down almost 30%. Variation is down 20%. Room changes are down almost 70%. If we look in the middle, we start looking at some of the financial data that came out of this. So you can see that our salary expense did go up, but our cost per case is flat. We hired more people, created better teams, and our cost per case did not go up. And if we look at staff turnover costs near the bottom, and I'll show you a graph on this, our staff turnover since we started this is down 43%, which for us is a little over $1 million in savings in staff expense. We had a revolving door in our operating rooms. We were at 27% turnover or something like that. When we look at the very specific goals that we set out for this project, again, throughput was up, overtime was down, and we were able to accommodate all of our urgent emergent cases appropriately. This is our staff turnover rate, and you can see from pre-MVP to later on, it was down 43%. And what those costs represent to us are cost savings. This is our variability analysis. And you can see that case volume variation is down 20% and surgery minutes are down 22% in terms of variability. Y'all use control charts to, yeah, so you're familiar with that. And this, I think, in a lot of ways as a clinician, this one's huge for me. Remember I told you that the number of times we were changing a patient from one room to another was at about 8%. The red line is the pre-implementation. The blue line is the post-implementation. So we went from about 5 moves or more a day to less than 1 move a day on average of moving an elective case. So now when that patient is scheduled into that room with that team at that time, we're now able to deliver that in most cases, whereas before we couldn't deliver up to 8 to 9% of the time. And you think about that in terms of safety and patient satisfaction and putting that patient at the top of that list. This is huge in keeping that patient at the top of that list. This is how our services have done in adopting this. This just shows utilization by service. Some services have significantly increased their utilization. Others are still struggling. So in summary, let me get to that so we can get to questions and answers. Here's how we summarize it at our hospital. We're doing more cases and more minutes of surgery. More of the volume is being done during prime time. Overtime is decreased. And even though we're short of the 80% threshold for prime time utilization, we have not negatively impacted our cost per case. And every increment above our current utilization are dollars that will fall to the bottom line. You with me? Cost per case right now is flat from before. We added FTEs. Any incremental volume through our operating room now is just going to fall to the bottom line. We have been able to maintain access for our urgent emergent cases. Our transplant surgeons are delighted. Any of y'all doing transplants? Are you able to keep your transplant surgeons happy? No, no. Ours are happy now because they don't have any concern about whether they can get what they want when they want it because we've set aside that resource for them. We've decreased the number of changes in the same day, and there are substantial cost savings that we've been able to realize without compromising our outcomes.